So this week we have the tournament winner and the camera guy that was with him the whole time. This week, 4-time Bassmaster winner, the people's champion, Lee Livesey, and the one and only Jake Latendresse with the ultimate Jake's Take. This week on...
I'm Bob Cobb from the Bassmaster. Welcome to Mercer.
Slowly but surely, Jake, you are morphing. You are morphing into basically the host of this show. I mean, but we're not bringing you in anymore. You're just always here. And to be honest, dude, I missed you. Obviously we hung out a lot this week at the event, but I missed not doing podcasts with you. It's been a long break.
Likewise. I mean, during that entire break, I was thinking, man, I'm like jonesing for Mercer all of a sudden. So it was very good to see you and everybody else. That was an exceptionally long break. I felt like it was like the off season, and then getting back in at Lake Fork was sort of okay. Well, we got to jump right back into this all of a sudden. So what is cool, and we did.
Oh, sure did. What is your record now? I mean, officially, most people tuned in the tournament. If you did not know, once again, Jake went wire to wire with our tournament champion, Lee Livesey. And we'll bring Lee in here shortly. But what is your official record, including the Classic this year?
I think it's 4 and
2.
4 and 2. Yeah, I missed Harris Chain and
the last one. What was the last one? What was the last one before Fork?
Chickamauga.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, I missed that one, but I had a hell of a story.
Yeah, you did you made up for it. I mean, when you're not with the leader, and thank God you weren't with the leader, because that would have made that experience even
epicer,
dirtier.
Do you know how many people came up to me that I didn't even know talking about the shit show? I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm leaving my mark here. Skid marks.
Literally. I already told you, but I didn't tell the viewers. Day 2, Lee had some equipment issues, and he came in at halfway through the day to get it checked out with the service crew. And I was standing backstage, and like half the tournament staff was there and a bunch of media. And we all kind of noticed when an angler idles in during the day, it stands out. You know what I mean? And we're all like, oh, and especially it's a guy who's at that point in second place of the tournament. And everybody at once turned to each other and they're like, oh God, does Jake have to shit again?
And I'm like, no. That was kind of actually a weird moment when he had to come in at noon.
Yeah.
He already, what people don't know, they don't know that he had to come in to get some service on his equipment because something tore up on the lake. And then he already had, I think he already had 32 pounds.
Yeah. He already had 32 pounds at that point. So no, 32 pounds on day 1. Maybe it was day 1 he came in. I don't know, but whichever day it was, doesn't matter. We're confusing it. But yeah, he had his weight. That's what I always also said to those guys, when they said that they thought that's what, yes, whether he's going in for whatever, it's amazing how accommodating an angler will be when they have 30 pounds in the boat. I mean, if he had 3 pounds in the boat, he might be like, well, jump in the water. But
I have to tell you that I talked to Taku at weigh-in at day 2. He came over and sat at the table where the camera trailer is, and we were just sitting there rapping. And I asked him, I said, did you hear the story about my experience in Daisuke's boat? He goes, oh, yeah. Everyone in Japan knows. He told me he didn't hear about it until he got back to Japan.
They're huge in Japan.
Oh, yeah. What a great legacy.
Oh, it's special. It's very special. Man, it was a crazy event. Let's try cover some ground before we bring in the busiest dude on earth. We never ever go chasing the champ. At least I've got out of it because the podcast world is an aggressive one, and I hate being part of that. But it's Lee, and you were with him all week. And actually, the whole reason Lee's on here is I said me and Jake are doing a podcast, and he said I want to be on it. So that's why we're gonna have him on here. But man, it was a special week for you guys as friends. special week for Bass. I mean, it was just, it was with everything leading into it, obviously Ray Scott and a lot of tributes towards him. And then obviously an incredible event.
The cowboy hat tribute was fitting for the state of Texas. The situation with Ray Scott, all that tribute was perfect. And like you said, some guys look great in cowboy hats and some guys don't, but Lee looks pretty good in a cowboy hat.
I got something to say about cowboy hats. Cause I obviously wore it all weekend long, and I've been getting a lot of people saying, stick with the cowboy hat. They like the cowboy hat. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. And if I do it, I learned one big difference between me and Ray this weekend. There's many. But the biggest difference is he has better cowboy hats than me. Mine was made of plastic, and it was literally the hottest thing you could put on your head this week. I mean, as soon as you put it on, if I'm ever wearing a cowboy hat again, I do need to get a better one than the plastic one that somebody gave me at the Fort Worth, Texas Classic.
Is that right? Last year?
Yeah. That's where mine came from.
Two things that happened, I'll say, before Lee came on that were kind of special. One is the two things that people didn't see. These are two little nuggets, right? One was Lee tried to kill me one time. He hit me with that hair jig, and he had a 5 or 6 pounder on. And when he loaded the rod up, that thing popped out, and I had just turned my camera to the fish and got on it really tight. And that hair jig came flying into the camera lens, and you could hear it go pout. It sounded like it hit a watermelon.
Me and Davey were on live, and we were arguing. I thought it went lower than Dave. Davey said right in the abdomen, and I said no, in another area. But I'll let you continue.
I just texted Lee about 30 minutes ago. I just jumped out of the shower, and I don't know why, but it's the first time I noticed it. But I have a double bruise on my abdomen right where that hair jig hit me. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it later. Thank God it wasn't in the other spot.
Oh, imagine that bruise. You would have noticed that a lot quicker.
And that's right. That would have hurt worse. The other thing that happened was when we came in, this was like a really special sort of a personal moment with Lee and I. And I think a lot of people know how tight we are now as friends.
He said on stage, that's my best friend right there.
Did.
I mean, how badass was that?
Drop the mic moment. And he, when he pulled in and checked in, he said, okay, Jake, where do I stand? Because until he caught that 8-3 at the last moment, which no one saw because we were off of live, he thought he didn't do enough. He thought he bombed the whole thing, and he choked and all that stuff. And we came in, he said, how are we doing? And I said, dude, like, you already had a 7-pound lead. You already had a 7-pound lead when you caught that 8-pounder. So now you got like an 8 or a 10 or 12-pound lead now. And you pretty much blew everyone else out of the water. And dude, hit my eyes. I got choked up when I told him that. And then his eyes started swelling, and we were literally, he had to pull over by that, what was that tower dock over there across the bay. He pulled over there and just stopped for a second, and we cried. And I turned my camera off. I set it down, and we just sat there, did not say a word, and we choked up. And that, to me, says it all, and how emotional this win was for him, to his what it means to his family, to him, his childhood dreams, everything involved with his past and his future and his present right now. It means so much to him. So I can't wait to talk to him about all this. And that was a really special personal moment for me. So I had to mention that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't see it because I was obviously on stage or getting ready to go on stage. I heard about it from other camera people. You guys must have been blubbery because one camera person, I think it was Kyle Jesse, said, I thought there was something wrong. Like I thought they got bad news or something from home. So you guys must have just been an embarrassing bobbling, falling mess.
Had we not done that, he would have cried on stage. I mean,
he's a crier.
So am I. Yeah. So am I. I cry about, I can handle bad news, but I can't handle good news. I guess that's my mom and me. But, he was so emotional because he knew at that point A, he did this in front of his home crowd, and B, he knows what this means to his career. I mean, did it not feel like he won the Classic? I mean, it was like huge.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not quite the Classic, but bigger than the Classic. Or not bigger than the Classic, but bigger than a regular Elite Series event, just because I think because it was at home, because it was another 100-pound bag, because he went back to back. It's so rare to do that, you know. Drew Cook told me, and the best comment of the week, because the first time we went there and Brandon Cobb won. And I kind of, the fall one, that's, you know, that was kind of a different time of year or whatever. And give that, you know, Patrick Walters walked away with that event. But the first one where Cook won, Lee was shattered. You know what I mean? Like
Cobb. We're
Cobb. Sorry. Yeah. Sometimes you know me in names.
Cobb, whatever.
Cook, Cobb. It's all those C names.
Cook and corn cobs.
But Cook said to me, look, wow, you think I speak for a living? Drew Cook told me that the best line of the week, he said, because when we first went to there, you hear about locals, but you just don't know how good of a local they are. You know what I mean? We just met Lee, and Cook looked to me the other night and he's like, man, I am glad he screwed up the first one. He didn't use the word screwed up. He used another word, but YouTube will hurt us on the algorithm if we swear too much. So I won't. But he said, I'm glad, you know, in retrospect, looking just how dominant he is on that body of water. It's incredible what he's done. And I think it is bigger than a Classic, just simply because, or not bigger than a Classic, but bigger than a regular Elite. Because, man, this solidifies his career. You know, the first one he won was on Chick, and it was so weird of conditions, and he won it, it was so close. Then he wins on Fork, and it's like, yeah, well, it's set up perfectly for him. And to go back there, never mind, you know, the open in between there. I mean, he's solidified as you know, a long-time pro. And I mean, 4 wins is thrown around. Look at Brandon Palnick and how celebrated his career is. He has 6. Lee Livesey has 4 in the last 3 years. You know, Davey Height is a bass fishing Hall of Famer, and this is no slight on him. He's 8 wins. Lee Livesey has done half of that now. It doesn't include all the Angler of the Year titles and stuff that Davey did, and the Classic title, obviously. But just in number of wins, I mean, 4. I don't think people realize how just astonishing what he's done over the last number of years has been.
I was told that he was the second quickest to 3 wins in Bassmaster history. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I think the quickest was KVD. I mean, KVD did it. I think Lee's done it in 34 attempts, and KVD did it in 24 attempts. And Mike McClellan's in there somewhere. But just say that to yourself. I mean, look at the names you're comparing him to already, and it's his 4th year as a professional angler, full-time, you know, touring professional angler.
Exactly. And he's, you know, and he did this, this is no slight to anyone else. And I'm not trying to, you know, pull judgment up or any of that stuff, but Lee came from a way less than what a lot of people have come from in the sport, and he did this somewhat the hard way. I mean, he came out of the trenches, and that's what I like about him. That's why he's, you know, he likes being called the people's champ, because that's what he is. You know, I mean, everybody loves him. He's the Busch Light guy. He's the Whiskey Myers guy. He's got Texas written all over him, and he still to this day, he probably always will, reminds me of like Dale Earnhardt. He's got that. He's just got that aura about him where he's intimidating. He's tall. He's dressed in black. His boat is so black you can't step into it barefoot on a 70-degree day, you know. And he drives that boat like a race car. I mean, that's the persona that he is, and I love it. I think, you know, our world is full of characters, and that's who he is. Yeah,
he is. It's amazing what he's come. And I mean, when you say the people's champ, I mean, it was never, ever displayed. He is definitely the people's champ for people in that area, because it was never displayed more than me and you were standing at his place that he was staying when he came back after winning. A lot of his buddies were around, and you know, the words he said when he got out, he's like, I got us another one, boys. And, you know, set it up on the deck, and they all came around. Like, to see the support that he has, I think that's why he's got it. You know what I mean? If he had been this hot shot that didn't pay his dues and didn't work and just, you don't see like the amount of people around him and the amount of like, his buddies that pointed out, and I forget his name, a young dude, 21 years old. He's giant dude. One of Lee's
Jack
buddies.
York.
Yeah. And they're like, that's the next one. That's the next Lee coming. And it's so cool to see how proud all of those guys are. And that just only comes by being a good person.
Exactly. Someone actually texted that to me in a DM on Instagram this morning. They said, first of all, they said, did you hear all the party horns and all the cheering and stuff every time he caught a fish? I'm like, yeah, I was sitting there, but it was loud. I mean, it sounded like a college football game, at College Station, Texas, cowbells, party horns. There's a guy flying this huge Busch Light American flag. They're drinking beer at 8:30 in the morning. Yeah. I mean, they're all wearing Lee Livesey jerseys. Yeah. I mean, it was, and like you said, what this guy texted me this morning was when people do that, when you're out on the water and people are doing that, they're not there to hit waypoints. They're there because you're their guy. And like you said, he's as blue collar as it gets. And that just shows and really illustrates his character and who he is and what he means to all those people around there. It's really cool. Yeah,
it was an awesome weekend and a big weekend for Lee. And I agree. I mean, it's a career maker, like to win that many. And I don't think he's even close to done. Like, not even close. I mean,
I'm going to say something bold right now. I'm taking him at Pickwick. I know that sounds weird.
Back to back.
I'm taking him at Pickwick because he's in a zone now, and I don't know what it's going to be like at Pickwick, but I hope he gets a chance to pick up his frog because he never threw a frog, not one time at Lake Fork, because the opportunity just never really showed itself for what the conditions had set up to be. And I don't know why. I have no rhyme or reason behind it, but I'm taking Lee at Pickwick.
Well, I would love to say, wow, that is ballsy to go back to back. I mean, what a freaking month. You know what I mean? Like he just a little over a month, had a baby, won an open, won an elite, and now Jake is picking him as
that open got him going. I in my opinion, that open, because he was struggling somewhat up until then.
Yeah.
And he was ready. I don't think he has had much experience at Ross Barnett. And for him to go down there and win like he did, I mean, I just think that was a pick me up, and he's on a roll right now. And the energy, the momentum, all that stuff. So we'll see.
Wow. Back to back. That is putting pressure on. But man, if you pull it off, I mean, it is kind of like a Babe Ruth pointing for your shot. Like if you pulled off them, Ronnie Moore was scared to take him because he had 69% taken. Some people were saying 70, but it's been clarified to me that do not say 70. It was 69% taken. Lee Livesey in fantasy fishing. And Ronnie said it was too much taken, wouldn't take him. And look what happened. So you're backing your buddy. Should we bring him in now?
Hold on. I got 30 more seconds. So okay. I want to say this too before we bring Lee in. People, I've seen comments on social media about, Hit being his home lake. That was easy for him and all this. And
tell that to Cliff Prince. Tell that to Kelly Jordan, who tried to win all those years there. All of
Buddy Gross at Chickamauga. Yeah. This list goes on and on. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because in my opinion, it is so much harder to win at home because you put so much more pressure on yourself. And it wasn't like last year, Lee was catching freaking monster after monster on that topwater, and he looked so much at home. What people don't realize about this year's win at Lake Fork was how hard he had to work and how the lake was fishing so much smaller because it was 6 feet lower than normal. And there were his rotations were always jacked up. I mean, we would go hit like 10 spots in a rotation, and he would have to hit like 6 before he could find an opening at another one because there was always someone on his spot. And so I want to emphasize how much more difficult this was for him and how hard he had to work to make this happen, particularly on days 3 and 4. It was tough. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy win. But that's what he said. He said, man, I don't often get it done pretty, but it usually gets done. And man, did it ever get done? Should we bring him in now?
Let's get him. Let's go get him.
Let's bring him in, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Livesey. Lee, I thought you have accomplished lots. I mean, what you've accomplished is incredible, but your best buddy right there, Jake, just called you out and said he's picking you for Pickwick to go back to back.
Oh, I thought he picked me for Mississippi River.
No, you picking you for Mississippi River. Dude, I've got this gut feeling you're just on a roll. And, you know, sometimes Pickwick can it's the Tennessee River, and that place can set up like you want it to. And I don't know why. I have no rhyme or reason behind it, but I've just got this gut feeling you're going to do really well there. So now the pressure's on.
No pressure at all. You know, everybody has seen me as a shallow power, topwater frog, braid fisherman, but I've actually built my strengths as far as fishing goes offshore. You know, deep cranking, you know, spoon and hair jigging, throwing baits that other guys offshore aren't throwing. You know, I've got an arsenal. We don't go to many tournaments where we get to utilize that stuff. We really don't. You know, we're mainly fishing around the spawn and then smallmouth, you know, up north, obviously out deep, but it's different baits and techniques. So, I mean, I'm excited about it because I get to actually throw some cool stuff and fish out deep. And, you know, that's what I'm good at, honestly. We just haven't got, obviously I just won a tournament doing it, but, you know, we hadn't got to utilize it to the full capacity on my end of it. So I'm excited for sure. And there's grass at Pickwick too. You know, I'm not just going to fish offshore. I'm going to look at the shell and the grass and all that stuff too. And, you know, we're good. We're in the classic and we won another one. So we can gamble on something that we have no idea about and see what happens.
Jake knows you're very good with a hair jig. I mean, he's a big fan of your hair jig.
He tried to kill me with one. I showed Mercer the bruise. For those that don't know this, which is everybody except the three of us now, I got hit with a hair jig on live, which a lot of people saw. And it's so funny because I was filming Lee. He got bit, he loaded the rod up, and I did a 90-degree angle turn to the fish, got on the fish immediately, zoomed in, racked focus, and this hair jig comes flying out to the lens and hits me in the abdomen, and it sounded like it hit a watermelon. For whatever reason, I didn't check it until like literally about an hour ago when I got out of the shower, and I said, I'll be damned, I got a freaking bruise there. Yeah, that was a 100-mile-an-hour fastball from Lee Livesey, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. I couldn't help but not laugh. It was.
Well, you were talking about all the versatility. I mean, ironically, on your home lake at Lake Fork, you know, the versatility that you had to pull out of your bat belt to win this tournament was really incredible because on day one, when I jumped in your boat, there was 2 rods on the deck, right? 2 rods on one side. I mean, you had a clean open deck. And when we came in at the end of day 3, there's like 14 rods on the deck. Most of them were busted off. I mean, it was like a yard sale, man. I mean, it was just trash because he was working so hard and he had to figure things out because there was so much pressure on his spots. That's something that people need to realize. Even on your home pond, that was not easy, was it?
No, I mean, it was a freaking train wreck, honestly, of nothing going right, but everything going right. You know, it felt like I was going to bomb and ended up winning by whatever the margin was. I don't even know, but
like 11 and a half
pounds, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It just, nothing happened how I thought it would. There was nothing preconceived spot wise or area wise where I usually smash them. And I had all this opportunity to find fish each day. I looked for hours every day of the tournament, and it never worked out right. And it was just crazy the way it all ended up happening. It was not the way I would have ever pictured it, besides the end result.
Why do you think that was? I mean, I I agree with you totally. Cause all week I kept saying the same thing. I'm like, it's like nothing has gone right, but nothing's going wrong for you. It just seemed like no matter, even I said a bunch of times on Sunday, like on live, when you did go through those few hours where it was slow, and we did know that you graphed a lot the day before. So obviously to go through those hours, it wasn't like it was just like you were looking for things, but I'm like, I have no doubt he's going to catch him, because all week long it's been like everything's gone wrong. Fish getting wrapped in trees, fishing, all these different things, but it just always worked out.
Yeah, it was a weird tournament on that end of it. But, at the same time, looking for all those hours, and, I know a lot of really good spots where they should be pulling up, and, sometimes not catching them and not finding them is just as good, because you're not going to waste any time on that stuff, and I had one spot where I knew they were reloading every day. I didn't know how good it was, how many it had, or how big it had, but every time I would pull up, I would catch a few good fish. So it kind of made me put all my eggs in that basket at some point in time. It wasn't like I just freaked out and ran over there. I actually looked at more stuff the final day when I shouldn't have been, but I was confident knowing that I could go back there and get bit by a good fish. And I mean, Jake knows I always have a plan in my head that I talk about, and I might not always follow that plan, but going through different spots, and I ran a bunch that morning. I was always saying, by 9:30, I need to be on that spot by 9:30. And, I pulled up on it at 9:29. I showed up a minute early actually on my schedule, and I caught one first cast, I think. So it looked like a train wreck, and it was, but at the same time, we always have a plan, and it was a really cool one the way it worked out.
Talk about, it's important to know, for the people to know, that you won that tournament on a spot you had never caught a bass on. This is your home pond. You never caught a bass on that. At least maybe in practice you did, but up until this event, you never had caught a fish there. So, that's worth talking about, because of the way things turned out, and how you had to go back there day 3 and day 4 to really upgrade your fish, or even, get out of the weeds that you were in, particularly on day 4.
Yeah. And, that was the weird thing about it. I'd never even looked at that spot in my life before, and found those fish the first day of practice, and, came back and caught 2 of them the first 2 casts in the second day of practice, and they weren't big. They were like, almost a 3 and almost a 4. Usually the big ones bite first. So I was like, maybe it'll be good for 1 fish a day. Maybe there's more. Maybe it'll be good for 14, 16 pounds if I need it, if I struggle. And so I really wasn't planning on using it. It was going to be something I just was going to check in the tournament and see if they got bigger. And they did, obviously. But I weighed fish from there every single day. I weighed a 6 there the first day, and a 5 or 6 there the second day. And no, I caught a bunch there the second day, cranking. Right. Yeah, I caught a bunch there the second day. I don't know how many of them I kept. And then the third day, I weighed 4 of my 5 there, every one but that 8. And then every single fish I caught the final day came from there, weight-wise. So it was huge for me,
Including an 8.3, which people haven't seen yet because that happened on your last cast. And the fact that you pulled in there on day 1, I remember specifically when you pulled up, you said, I got to fish this spot. I'm probably not, this probably full of 3 and 5 pounders, probably not going to catch anything big, but I want to get 25 pounds out of here and then go hunting for a bigger fish. I remember you saying that specifically.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I didn't know what was there, and I still don't. There was still another 10 when I left.
I know what's not there.
Yeah. And I went through different baits on the spot. You saw me catching them on a jig, a big worm, a crank, 2 different crankbaits, a hair jig, a flutter spoon, and a Carolina rig, and I wanted so bad to throw a drop shot in there, but I was scared of breaking them off. There's no telling how many I could have caught on a drop shot in there. So it was a cool little spot that paid off.
Why is Fork such a home for innovation? Like, you look at all the like long line and a crankbait, the big spoon, and all the different things that, all the forefathers, whether it be the late Mark Pack, Kelly Jordan, all of, there's so many incredible anglers from Fork, but it has also been a hub for innovation in the sport.
It's just because of how the lake sets up and the fish population. So we have so many unique spots to catch fish, whether it's, and I'm just generically talking about offshore fishing right now because that's what we were doing. So you have humps, you got road beds, you got points, you got ridges, you got timber, underwater bridges, actual bridges, road beds, shell beds, just there's tire reefs, there's all kinds of stuff to catch fish off of, to try different techniques, aka different baits. That's the first and foremost thing. And then second is the fish get so much pressure. They see so much of the same, generic Carolina rig, worm, jig, stuff like that, that we try other baits, and people will come in there with very unique techniques and baits because the fish are accustomed to everything else, and they catch these great big bags on them because they haven't seen them. And then we transfer it to other lakes and other areas of the country. So that's kind of the two reasons why you see innovation on Lake Fork.
The 8.5 you caught, this just carries me into this moment when you had pulled up to this spot. I mean, you were struggling to find a spot because either A, someone was on every spot you wanted to go to, or the fish weren't set up on the other spots that you had available. And you pulled into this one spot and you caught a yellow bass. And then I think you had already caught a white bass there. And I remember asking you, I said, it was a pretty good sized white bass. And I asked you specifically, I said, would a 10-pound largemouth eat a fish that big? And you said, oh, absolutely. Hell yeah. And so I started thinking about the whole big glide bait trend and, all that that type of technique going, you can't have a bait big enough. And then all of a sudden you go out there and, ironically you were throwing a jig, but you catch an 8.5 on that spot in the white bass, not set up where you thought they were going to be. You didn't know if they were bass in with those white bass. You didn't even know if they were yellow bass or white bass, but you saw bait there. So you had to try it, and you pull this jig out and catch an 8.5. And this ding went off in my head. Like, wow, that was an incredible catch, I thought.
Yeah. Like that's a thing there though. When we find those white bass grouped up like that and the yellow bass, we call them barfish here. Those, you might not catch just a lot of bass out of those groups, but you'll catch a bigger than average size bass out of those schools, because then they're in there eating the barfish, eating the white bass. And I could tell from graphing that spot that there weren't a lot of bass in there, but I saw 4 or 5 like big ones. Remember, I even said those might even be catfish in there eating them. They were so big. They were all mature, just like 8 to 10 pound bass, I think. And you saw me, I pulled up with a flutter spoon and I caught a yellow and I caught 2 whites, I think. And I said, okay, I got those whites fired up. Now I'm going to catch a black, hopefully. And I changed my angle and I picked up a jig and threw in there and caught her. I think I caught it first cast with the jig, actually.
It was it was definitely the first cast. I remember vividly.
But it was because I got those white bass down there fired up, feeding, and those big largemouth. What's going on? That fish is over there stressed, and they start eating a couple of them and just get a little stupid.
It's like wildebeest scattering and then the lions having to chase something because everything's going everywhere. I mean, same principle, right?
Same thing, just that feeding frenzy.
Lee, you've been on every podcast in the history of mankind, literally this week. So we got to give them the juice that you can't get anywhere else for them to listen to our tomfoolery. How many times did Jake need to poop his pants this week in the tournament?
0.
Wow, the Imodium worked.
Oh no, dude! I made sure I was regular in the morning on this trip because there was no way. Hey, he had like 17 boats following him around the whole time. And I'm like, there's no way. I mean, I would definitely have to jump in the water there.
We cooked crawfish. Both of y'all came over actually one night, so I definitely thought about it midday that next day. But
I took an extra Imodium after eating crawfish.
My real question, though, is this relationship between you two guys. I mean, there's a lot I mean, that's the one thing that nobody gets to see that I think is cool. I mean, number one, the hardest working people at Bass are the camera folks. And I say it all the time, but there's a lot of people with relationships, but to be as tight as you guys are, do you feel that almost gives you an advantage, Lee? Like when you're competing, it's luck that you get Jake, you know what I mean? Like, and you did what you need to do to keep him in your boat all week. I mean, if you fall out of the top 6 out of the first 2 days, you would have lost him.
Right.
But I mean, you're out there with a buddy. Just tell me about the relationship, both of you guys, really.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage, and it's a mental advantage for sure. That the whole friendship thing, that's not just on the water winning, that's off the water, hunting together and drinking beer. And Jake's just, everybody loves Jake. It's hard to not like Jake. So I know a lot of people that don't like me, but I don't know anybody that likes Jake. So,
the other camera guys, if he keeps winning, they're going to stop liking Jake. I mean, he's got a 4-2 record this year.
So, Jake's just one of those guys that's, that positive mental attitude and his energy, and it's everything. He'll make you happy and he'll make you cry and all that. But it's definitely an advantage on my side, just because he knows when to be quiet. He knows when to give me encouragement. He knows when to make the right moves as a cameraman. Just being in the boat, it's kind of like having a good fishing team partner.
Yeah.
I know when he's behind me, and he knows when I know, and stuff like that. And it's just natural when we're together as far as that goes. So he's the best. I mean, I tell that to everybody, and I'm very grateful to have him in my boat whenever I can.
Jake, do you ever feel before you get into? I also got to ask you: do you ever feel pressure, like if Lee's in the top 10 and you're with another angler, that they're just looking at you being like that? You guys have been so public with this relationship, they'd be like, "You'd rather be with Lee, wouldn't you?"
Oh yeah. I can feel that.
when he comes by, no matter who I'm with, when Lee comes by, if I'm not in his boat, I feel like I should be. And to be honest with you, going all the way back to Chick, when he won there, I didn't really see this friendship coming. It just happened, and it was so organic and authentic. And I think it's, the blue collar in both of us, the kind of energy that he needs, kind of energy that I need. And now we've been together so much, in the boat together so much, like he said, we dance. Like when because he comes back to the back of the boat a lot, because he'll set up with his spot lock, facing into the wind or whatever direction he needs to be in. And instead of staying on the front deck, he comes to the back, particularly to land fish or to fight fish. He always does. And now I know, and he knows, that I don't have to go to the front of the boat to stay out of his way. He comes around me and I go to the other corner. It's like two guys dancing in a ring, in a boxing ring. And I'll even, I'm not scared to put my hand on his back without saying anything, so he knows where I am. So he doesn't get his rod tip hung in my camera, which I've done before, like with Taku, I've done several times. And we just know, the vibe and where each other is. And when he catches a big one, which he typically does at some point in every event, I just get fired up, man. There's something about his energy that fires me up, and that reciprocates itself between the two of us. So yeah, I love being in his boat, and I love, going to his camp or wherever he's staying, hanging out and doing all those things. I mean, we text during the week a lot of times and just talk about shit, so it's cool, man. Lee is a great guy, and I'm glad we were friends before he turned into a superstar. So now everyone knows that this was organic and authentic. There's nothing fake about it.
Right.
Where do you feel your career is, Lee? What does this win do for your career? Like Jake said, we talked about it before we brought you on. It felt a lot bigger than a regular Elite Series win. And maybe that's because we're buddies, whatever, but it did.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with winning not last week, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago on Ross Burnett. So I was fresh on everybody's mind, because I had a rough season before that, besides, a couple events in the Classic. So I think I was just fresh on everybody's mind. And obviously it was just double dose from last year winning Fork 2 and all the crap y'all guys talk about out there about I should win it, and we did it again. So it was, in my mind, my career has just started, and it has, and that's all for y'all to talk about. I don't care about any of that. I just want to win another one. My mind's always about, how I need to fish to win the next event. And, we're in the Classic now, and it's, I can do stupid stuff now if I want to get dangerous and win another one, so, and that's so cliche to say, but it's honest, I can take a gamble anywhere I go and bomb, and I'll be just totally fine with it. I'm not fishing for points or money at all the rest of the year. I'm fishing literally to win another trophy. And I'm not going to be stupid, don't get me wrong, but I can definitely take some gambles, whether it's making a long run at Hawaii or Mississippi River lock-in, or, St. Lawrence going out in the lake if there's 6-footers or stuff like that, So it's my career is just getting started in my mind. I want to be here for a long time, and I want to win a lot of stuff. I don't want to win just that. We still have the Classic, and the AOI is the most prestigious in my mind. So that's all future goals of mine, or stuff like that.
Well, one of the things you always say when you bring a trophy home, you always say, we got another one. It's always about we, it's not about me. And I really appreciate that about you, Lee, in that, obviously the people that followed you around, your flotilla that you had on Lake Fork, and the fans that you have, and the way they talk about you, they love you. You are the people's champ. And I think when you say we brought another one home, that's where that comes from. And I think that's why people love you so much. So, it's not all about Lee. It's all about us in the big picture. You always talk about, hey man, that was great, and I'm ready to go win another one now. Let's just keep winning trophies, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, I'm winning that trophy for everybody. I feel the pressure, and it's not just family and friends. It's Jake, that final day when I was struggling, I could feel Jake getting quiet back there, and not that it was hurting me, but I was thinking, man, I want to win it for Jake too. I don't want Jake to lose, and I don't want, if Davey Height picked me to win, I want him to win too. And the people follow me in the boats that I don't even know, the people, those aren't just family, it's random people that have flown in or drove in from out of state all over the place that just kind of want to feel that feeling that we're getting at these events on Fork and in other stuff. So I want to win for everybody, that whole crowd out there at Lake Fork that's rooting me on. I saw the most random people that I haven't seen in 15 years, and then best friends and people that I'll never see again, I'm sure. I want to win that for everybody. And that's why we changed it from the Mercer.
Well, whatever the people's champ wants, the people's champ gets. Speaking of winning, you played football against Matt Stafford growing up, and he had a pretty good season. Let's go with the 2022 season, and you're having a pretty good season, 2022 season. It's a two-part question. First, I want to ask you who's having a better year, and not financially, but wins wise. We know who won the financial end of things. You, of course. Who's having a better year? I want you to answer that, and then I want you to tell me what it's like to play against Matt Stafford and watch him. You know what I mean? Watch him go on to the Super Bowl and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I didn't play against Matt a bunch because he was in a different division. We played him in the playoffs, and I think he was like 3 years younger than me, maybe 2. I don't remember. But he never threw a ball that you could pick off. I do remember that, even being that young. He always was low. And low is what you want to be as a quarterback. You always want to be low as a safety, looking as a safety. So that's what I remember about Matt. He was a competitor and was obviously really, really good. And he's not done yet. So I think I got the better season going, though. I'm going to be greedy on that one.
I agree. Financially, he might have won. And he, if any team wins the Super Bowl, but the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're losers.
He probably made more money in 1 second than I did all year.
Yeah.
He's loaded.
But he had to live in Detroit for like 12 years and never ever make the playoffs. I think they made the playoffs, but never win a playoff game, obviously. So you win. You get to fish for a living. You win.
Right. And I don't like Detroit.
You don't like the Detroit Lions or just Detroit?
Detroit.
Yeah. When we go to St. Clair, it's always like, oh man, I love St. Clair, but it's weird.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there's a great part of Detroit. Nobody's just ever invited me to that part. I literally stay on, there's a movie with Eminem called 8 Mile.
Yeah.
And I stay on 10 Mile when I'm there. So you can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's changed a lot over the last number of years. I mean, half their population fled and they went bankrupt. So I would say that the whole part of Detroit's a little strange. It's not quite Texas.
No.
Lee, when you like now, things have happened really quickly. We've talked about this already in this podcast. In your career, things are moving on up. And how does that feel to go from whatever you felt before to now? It's got to be life-changing and lots of stuff running through your head, how to conduct your business and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's still coming full flood, by the second. Obviously, all this is happening so quick, thankfully, I've gotten married in the last half year, had a kid, 2 months ago. She's 8 weeks old right now. So there's all kinds of stuff going on in my life, all positive. But, as far as the growth as an angler, I kind of feel good coming in. I came in green, obviously, like everybody. Most of my sponsors were non-endemic stuff, stuff from guiding, just knowing really good friends that had been clients that had companies that could sponsor me or would. And the good thing about my growth as an angler business wise has been branching out into the more, fishing related companies. That's where I'm growing, and my fan base has been really organic to me. I don't have 150,000 followers or 70 or 80. I'm in that 26,000, 4,000, whatever it is. I don't even have a clue what I have right now, but I feel like my fan base is really interactive with me and organic, that we built from nothing, if that makes sense to y'all. I feel like everybody was with me from the beginning, and like listening to Whiskey Myers or drinking Bush, just seeing people that have jumped on the Bush Light train shows me, how many people are that connected to me and enjoy, doing what I like to do too. We sold Wood County out of Bush Light in 3 days at Lake Fork. So it's just cool to see my growth, my fan base growth be really organic, and I try to interact with them really good. Even the other night after I won on Fork, we had people over at my house again to, drink beer and celebrate. And I went over to Dave was with me. Mercer, you were with me. Me and Dave sat in the parking lot and drank a beer together before we left. And he said, man, this is probably the best time of your day. You don't have to talk to anybody. And we just kind of sat there in silence. But there was a group of SRA workers over in the fence, that put on the event, guys, just blue collar guys that I know a couple of them. And, I walked over there and I had a beer with them, and I said, hey, any of y'all want to come over and hang out at the house, let me know. And they're like, really, kind of deal, and sure enough, a couple of them came over that night and had some beers and told stories and talked about hunting and fishing and working. And I think just growing my fan base like that, just with good blue collar people that support me and enjoy my company and what I like to do is where I'm enjoying growing as an angler. It's just that the fishing related sponsor wise, and just that, I don't have to have 1 million followers. I like to know that everybody that's following me is really enjoying me and I can talk to, just like me and y'all two do.
Yeah. I don't know about your day, but that 20 minutes was one of the coolest parts of my day. And it wasn't, we sat there not talking half the time. You know what I mean? Just both like literally looking at each other, looking at the trophy. And it was cool to see you decompress and just everybody has to thank their sponsor. Everybody got a job to do, but everybody, I don't care who you are. I think that's what makes Takumi Ito so special. He says exactly what's going through his mind. and to watch you and just have you repeatedly just be like, is this real? Did I really like, I mean, it was a very cool moment to be part of.
Yeah. And there's highs and lows and ups and downs. You know, when I checked in, you know, it was just me and Jake and my marshal. And, you know, Jake, like I said, Jake can make you cry. And just, you know, he asked me one of the same questions, you know, how is this win going to change your life? You know, I'm talking about, we had just idled in. I didn't even know where to park. My mind was just blown at this point in time that I had won another one. So it was, there was a surreal moment before I actually got into the weigh-in section with it. It was just me and Jake. Yeah. And I sat there and I couldn't stop crying, you know, happy cry, sad cry, whatever. And then obviously the weigh-in, everything. The weigh-in was cool because of what had happened in front of me with Brandon and Gerald. And the week had went good where I got to plug my sponsors, a lot of them on the water, off the water on podcasts. So when I was on the stage, I never even had to mention a sponsor. And I guarantee you every single one of my companies was cool with it because of how the week had went down. So that was really nice just to get to talk to the crowd. And then it transitioned into all the autographs and all the great stuff afterwards. But then when I sat there in my boat with you, just staring at the trophy with a beer saying, did this really just happen again the way it happened? So it was a really cool event and on different levels for sure on my end.
That, you know, the moment that we kind of stopped in the idle zone there after you checked in, you said, well, where are we? What, and I couldn't even, like, I held up a finger and cause I couldn't talk because I knew if I did, I was freaking gonna lose it. And you know, what makes me so emotional when things like that happen, Lee, is I don't know what it really meant to you, but I know it means a lot. And to be there, to be the only person in the boat, well, exception of the marshal, we had, you know, 4 different marshals, but to be there and witness all the struggle and all the things that you did. I mean, I was sitting there literally imagining for 4 days, these are all things Lee's learned over 36 years on Lake Fork. Like he had to throw everything but the kitchen sink. And then the emotional outpouring when you caught that 8-3 on the last cast, dude, I was like my heart and my head exploded. Literally, I put my camera down and I ran up to the front deck and grabbed Lee. I bear hugged him and he lifted me up. He lifted me up like Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy. Yeah, and my feet were swinging.
Who's Kermit and who's Miss Piggy?
Sesame Street?
No. Which one of you is Kermit and which one of you is Miss Piggy?
I guess I would be Miss Piggy. But when that happened, you know, I can't help it. I can't help it when I raise my arm and I just go, I was like, yeah, like I can't help it. That's the sports fan in me. And that's the friend in me. And that's all this love and emotional support coming out that I've been holding in for 4 days. And when that happened, I knew he had already pretty much won the tournament. But, you know, at that point, there was still 30 minutes left when he was 7 pounds up. And Polnick could have caught a 9-pounder right then and taken the lead. And I was waiting on that. I was checking my bass track like constantly and not saying anything. And when he stuck that 8-3, I was like, dude, on a spoon in wood, it was insane. Was it not insane?
It was. And it was kind of weird because we were off live. Sego was gone. Dalton was gone. It was just me, you, and probably 10 boats. Because a lot of the guys that were following had went to make the weigh-in, you know, load up, make the weigh-in. So there was just a little core group of us there, and I hadn't thrown a spoon there at all. The fish was hooked with one hook, just barely underneath the chin, got me wrapped up in a tree. I fell down on the boat, just all kinds of stuff, because the fish was fighting so hard. I knew if she pulled at all, she was going to pull that hook, and I was trying to lose the tension. I couldn't push my butt, so I fell down trying to get the rod in the water. It was just insane, and just going kind of on that fish catch in the last hour or so. You know, I caught I think I caught like a 5-pounder or one of the later ones I caught, that not that I was getting info, but somebody in the crowd I just heard that was talking louder said, no, he's still up by 4 pounds. And in my head, that meant, oh, I just weighed that fish. Is Lee leading out? No, Polnick's still up by 4 pounds is what went in my head. So I was like, oh shit, I'm losing by 4 pounds still.
I mean, you had a 110 and a 114 in your 5. You still had 2 fish under 2 pounds that you had to get rid of with an hour to go. Do I remember that right?
Somewhere close, but
yeah.
The only thing I knew was, I could feel everybody getting tense. I didn't know if it was good, like he's winning, or bad. But, I still had photographers, had drone. So I didn't know. So I was going to fish till the very last second. I was talking about I'm doing this at this time. I said at 2:30, I'm leaving and I'm going to the brim bed. I had one brim bed where I thought I could pull up one cast, a giant, if he was there and have that fish. But I kept seeing these fish on my 360 showing up and they were eating shad. And I was like, man, I just stayed and fished a little bit. And I said, I'm going to throw that spoon in there. If it gets hung up, whatever, I'll break it off and I'll haul back to that brim bed. This was like 2:38, I think, somewhere in there.
That's exactly what time it was, 2:38.
It was after I said I should leave. So I had kind of committed. I threw that spoon in there and hopped it once and did what we just talked about, the fight and everything. Well, I caught that fish. I don't even remember what I did. I kind of blacked out. But waded in, let it go. And I stood up on the front deck and I looked back at Jake. And Jake put his camera down, which he never does. And he came up and gave me that hug. And when he did that, I was like, oh shit, I might be in the lead instead of being behind by 4 pounds. So that's when it got serious in my mind that I might have won.
We got to tell everyone when you pull. So Lee's making his rounds. He's going to all these different spots. We've been to, 5, 6, 7, 8 times throughout this 4-day event, and time is running out. He's got 2 fish under 2 pounds in his live well or in his 5 count. And he's like this is just about over. So he goes back to that spot that he had been, doing so well on, really the only spot he did really well on. He goes back there, and as soon as we pull up, there are 2 big shad that flicked at the top. And then all these things started adding up for him literally to lead into throwing a big spoon, because that was really the last thing you hadn't thrown at him. And because they were feeding, and then you caught that 5-pounder. The first one you caught when you pulled up, it took you a while to catch that fish, and it had a squared off belly, like it had literally just eaten a shad, literally just choked it down. Lee hooks into this fish with a 300 DD. Is that right? With a crankbait, whatever it was. And the fish goes limp. It was in a food coma because it was so full of shad and still bit his bait. And I remember
it was on the jig.
It was on. Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, it was still wanting to eat something. It was like a snake that had just eaten a deer and wanted to eat another deer, and I remember that setting this whole scenario up, and you didn't really know how it was going to turn out until it turned out. And the way you caught that last giant fish on a floater spoon makes all the sense in the world. It was kind of like a duh moment,
Yeah, there was just so much timber in there. Like if you would have thrown that spoon right off the bat, you got hung up the first cast that you needed.
And killed it. Killed the spot.
Get it out or break it off. So that's why I never threw it. I caught some crank in there, but I would get hung up every now and then. So it was just one of them had spit up a big shad when I was fighting it, and it was just one of those instinct deals. Like I need to throw a spoon in there before I leave just to see, and it worked out.
You brought up the weigh-in, and I'll tell you, I think it was one of the coolest weigh-ins we've ever had, to be honest. And there wasn't a fish weighed at all. Right. How cool would it have been if number one, 2 things. If we had a frozen bass track, you would have come in and not knowing you won because Jake wouldn't have let it out so much in that situation, I would imagine. And even regardless, you wouldn't have had the certainty. You know what I mean? And you wouldn't have known. I mean, how incredible would that have been? Because a lot of the guys that got him in the back, in the back of the top 10 is what I mean. But I love that win, because to me, that explains what our group is. Like, we have some of them, and I get it. It was you and Brandon and Gerald and three guys who are not ever accused of being quiet or whatever. I mean, maybe you're quiet at times, Lee, but you know what I mean? You guys are all confident and outspoken guys. But that's what our backstage, like when our guys are allowed to be our guys and just let it out, that's what it is. And it was awesome. But the coolest moment for me was that when you won and both of them, the three of you hugging up there. I mean, there's some stuff that happens on stage that I love, because you don't need to say anything. Like, you literally just step back. I remember stepping back and pointing to it and letting it play out, and then being like, that's what makes our sport so special. What was said in that, when you three were group hugging, but what did that mean to you? Like, I mean, even being Lee Livesey, a guy who joined here 4 years ago, you're like, you've got Gerald Swindle and Brandon Palnick hugging you on the stage.
Right. Things have happened quick, and I consider both of those two good friends. This fishing fraternity, you grow quick in it. Trust me. And it can go either way. Then, there's guys that don't like guys and guys that like guys. And I consider both of them, they're both Hall of Famers, obviously, but just good friends in general too. So it was fun and I talk to both of them, weekly and about all kinds of stuff. And they are who they are. Swindle is obviously the biggest personality in our field, I would call it. And Brandon's probably the most popular fisherman in our crowd, I would say, and one of the best, obviously best closers. So it was cool to beat those two. And I was vocal about that. Nobody I'd rather beat than Brandon Palnick. And about halfway through the morning, when I didn't have a fish, I was changing my speech to nobody I'd rather be beat by than Brandon Palnick. Just trust me, I was thinking about it. But, those, I respect those guys to the fullest for life. They're both great fishermen and businessmen too, and have become good friends, and we actually all three said we love each other when we did that hug. We did a Palnick sandwich the day before, and I love you the next day.
This sort of takes me back to a moment on that one spot where Brandon was tied up to a log. Brandon lost his trolling motor power on was that day 2 or day 3, Lee?
That was day 1.
Was it day 1?
Yeah, day 1. Man.
Okay. So Brandon was smart enough, or he was tied up to this log, and I asked Lee, I said, why is he tied up to that log? And he goes, because he's smart. And then when he pulled up, Brandon
That's
goes,
such a Lee Livesey answer right there. Just so you know, like, if you've been hung out with him, that's how he answers things.
Right. And so we pull up closer to Brandon because he's going to ask Brandon if he can fish the other perimeter, the other side of that spot. And Brandon goes, dude, I lost my trolling motor. That's why I'm tied up to this log. And he said, do you mind if I fish here, to Brandon? And Brandon said, he shrugged his shoulders. He goes, go ahead. Lee pulls up to the outside edge of where he wanted to fish, out of range of any cast Palnick could make from where he was. And he lets his trolling motor down, and he starts to grab a rod. He reaches back down, grabs the handle, pulls his trolling motor back up, and he says, I can't do this. This is not right. And he saddles up, and we go somewhere else. And he did that because of the respect he had for Brandon Palnick. And I just want to make mention of that, because that is the kind of guy that Lee is, and all that played out. And these are the kinds of nuggets that no one ever hears about, but you need to hear about it, because that's what you call professionalism. That's what you call friendship. And that's what you call camaraderie. And that leads to things like hugs and telling each other they love each other on stage. Is that not right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And it goes both ways with those other guys too. There's a lot of guys that saw me catch them where I ended up catching those last 2 days, David Mullins and Gleason and Chris Johnston, and everybody respected my water. And it was pretty cool to, see all that go down the way it should have. That's the way it should be.
Does it shock you there wasn't a 9-pounder caught? in the whole tournament.
Yeah, that really did shock me.
Yeah.
Even though we were fishing the wrong week. We were in the backside of the moon phase where the fishing just in general goes down that week. But it's Lake Fork. I mean, you might catch a 10-pounder off the minnow bucket dock. I'm sure somebody fishing locally, just fun fishing, there was probably 10 of them caught the same week we were there, just different time of day, afternoon or night or something, it's full of them. We just didn't catch one.
What time would you like if you could pick the time? And I hope we go back to Fork every year. I know some people probably don't feel that way, but it's an incredible body of water. I mean, it's just, to me, and the amazing thing is what you've done is so rare, because I understand, like, you look at Keith Combs, who people used to say owned Fork. You know what I mean? He's not come back to back like this and the way you've done it. But if you could choose, like, when do you think would be the best time to go? And I don't mean just for you, but if we want to get as many 100-pound bags 100-pound limits as possible, as many century belts.
The first weekend in June. So when we're going to be at Pickwick, pretty much.
We should have flipped those two, because I bet you Pickwick would have been better this past week.
Yep. That's what I said from the get-go when the schedule came out.
Well, we'll talk to our scheduling department. The People's Champ wants it moved, and the People's Champ will get what he wants.
That's right.
That is a really cool lake. I mean, all the different things that you did translate into really anywhere else in the country for big largemouth. And every time I'm with you on Lake Fork, I learn something new, and I learn why you can translate into places like, Chickamauga, Ross Barnett, wherever you do well, because there's so many opportunities for you to learn so much about big bass and the stories you've told me, even in conversation while we're running, about seeing a spot and then literally saying, and I know you're telling the truth because you're telling I know you, and you talk about, dude, I've seen, 200 bass feeding on this point between 5 and 10 pounds or whatever it is. And you just go, God, how do you wrap your head around that?
Yeah. Lake Fork's just a different beast. It's a legendary lake. That's all it is. It grabs you as a young kid, especially. You hear all these stories about the old days and all these 18s and 17s and 16s, and you hear all those stories, and then you go out there and you go to the marinas and see all the tackle and all the guides and all the pros and the Kelly Jordans and the Takahiro Maris, and just you hear all this legendary hoopla that's true. And it is the best lake in the world to catch big ones. It's, look at the top 50 list in Texas. It doesn't lie,
Yeah.
And it hooks you. It's crazy. People, and not just us professionals or you or people from all over the world come to Lake Fork, and it's because of that legendary Lake Fork, just catching giants and the timber and the grass, and it's just a whole mythological little lake that is really actually pretty small for what it produces, and it's crazy. It's just it's Lake Fork.
It's like the Florida Keys, really. Like, you know what I mean? When you go to the Florida Keys, if you start talking to the locals, you know what I mean? The person in the bar, the waitress, or it doesn't matter what store you go to. Very few people are from the Florida Keys. They're all just people who went to the Florida Keys and didn't leave. Literally, like, you hear story after story about, I went on vacation here and I just stayed. I had to find a way to live here. And that seems to be what Fork is for fishing. I mean, if you spend time with am I right in that assumption? I mean, there's a lot of locals that have grown up there, but there's a lot of people who just moved there because of the fishery.
Oh yeah. Move there, fish there, and it's everything. People make the same trips every year from Italy, from Japan, from Canada. When I was guiding full time, you'd have these guys come in, for weeks at a time that come from all over the world just to fish Lake Fork. And it's a regular deal. I had some groups that were fisherman guides for 20 years before me that had came for a week or 2 or 3, whatever, since the 80s, with the same group of guys or whatever it is. So it's just one of those deals. Even if the fishing did decline, you're still going to go because of what Lake Fork is,
For sure.
What was the most memorable moment you had at this last event on Lake Fork? What stands out the most?
I'm not going to say the last fish catch because that's too easy. Obviously that was the pinnacle and the dagger. But man, it's got to be. I'll tell you exactly what it was this time. It was the weigh-in. I was in my boat behind that Tundra, and the whole crowd could see me at this point in time, and I could see the whole crowd, but I could see Dave and Gerald and Brandon, and I got to sit there and watch that when I usually can't. I'm usually behind stage, so I got to sit there and watch that, listen to it, and feel the crowd. I'm not funny like Gerald, and I'm not, pretty like Brandon or whatever. I got to let the crowd kind of build before me, but at the same time, I was sitting there, and I just signed 1,000 autographs while my boat's almost running over little kids pulling up, and people that I know, and I look out in the crowd and I can see my family. I can see some of my sponsors, my friends, my best friends growing out, my tournament partners. And then I look out there and see the most random people, like my beer drinking buddy KJ, that he probably doesn't even know fish tournaments, honestly. And he was there with his girlfriend and just other friends that don't care about bass fishing, in my mind, and high school coaches and just these most random people that this tournament and what was going down had reached that in my mind previously was nothing to them. So I think from that moment when I pulled up until the end of my weigh-in, when I got to actually talk to all those people, like my whole Ballistic Boats family from Idaho, they were all there, and just everybody, my wife and my baby being out in that crowd. And that's what stands out to me. And I know I could say a million fish catches and losing fish in trees and catching fish in trees, but that was it for me, getting to sit there and watch the guys in front of me and watch the crowd and then get to interact with them and get the trophy was the deal for me, for sure. And you were right there too. I got to sit there and talk to you, Jake. You were right beside me. So it was.
I didn't want to leave. I mean, even when we pulled up to the dock and they were going to trailer.
He should have carried you up on the stage like a little kid, like Paul Mueller's son.
Speaking of Paul Mueller, no. I didn't want to leave. When you pulled up to the dock and you're waiting on your truck and trailer to come down to load everything up, I don't know what it was. I didn't want to leave. I felt like
it felt weird. Yeah.
It really did, man. I mean, your Ballistic family came down. Corey Johnson came down. People wanted to come by and just touch you and just be a part of what was going on. And I didn't want to leave. I really didn't shoot that much. I just stood on the back of the boat and, Gerald pulled in, he trailered out, he said something. Brandon pulled in. He was a bit down because, it didn't go the way he wanted to, but all that stuff was, stands out in my mind. I remember when we were rolling under the bridge at one point too, and Corey Johnson drove by, they go back and forth. They're really good friends. And, they go back and forth like brothers. Corey rolls by the bridge when we're about to pull into the no wake zone. And he goes, dang it, I was 2 seconds short of being able to flip him off. And then when we got to the boat, when we got back to the ramp, Corey came down. He goes, did you see me flipping you off when I drove by? Which I thought was pretty funny. But yeah, that was a really great experience. And man, I've had so many great moments this year as a camera guy, but that was really one of the most emotional that I've had thus far this year. So thanks, Lee.
Thank you for shooting it all. It's pretty crazy.
Speaking of Corey, do you realize that with all the hoopla and hype behind the Johnston brothers, I believe we've been to the St. Lawrence River every of the 4 years you guys been in the Elite Series every year. We've been to Fork every year. There's two of them. There is one of you. You're dominating them, dude. So that gives them double the amount of opportunities to live on the fishery that they own. that you have, and in half of the amount of opportunities. I mean, they've got one win, and now you have two on Lake Fork. I mean, has that been brought up at any point? That I mean, imagine if there was two Livesey brothers out there fishing.
Oh, I definitely let them know for sure, and it's crazy watching them two everywhere we go be just as dominant. You know, Chris was in the top 10 in this one. Go to the Sabine River, Chris is in the top 10 at that one. You know, just it's cool watching those guys work and do good everywhere they go, no matter where it is. You know.
So what's next? You gonna win Pickwick like Jake says?
I'm down for Pickwick. Now, I personally would like to win a smallmouth event.
Or, you imagine if you win on the St. Lawrence River, those brothers would be.
Oh my goodness.
I know it doesn't seem like it, but last year, you know, I stayed close the first day just to make sure I caught a bass and waded in and did all this stuff. And I was in because I had all these big ones out in the lake found, but it's just like, you know, let me make sure I'm in the classic, and we got a $10,000 bonus for being in the top 5 AOY or top 10 AOY last year, guaranteed. So I was like, you know, I better be smart and go ahead and get my extra $10,000 or extra $20,000 with the classic. So I stayed close and was in 65th place or something, but that's all I had to do to get that.
Yeah.
So the second and third day, I ran down the lake and I caught great big bags and almost got in the top 10 coming from 65th. So I'm not saying I'm the king of the St. Lawrence River or nothing, but I've figured it out. You know, just give me some time out there. I can catch those smallmouth too. I wish I could have had that first day back last year to see if I could have had a shot at it for sure.
Too bad we're not going back to Champlain, because I know how much you love that place and how much you've studied it and how much time you spent there, you know, just trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, that was the event before the one I was just talking about. You know, I felt obviously I led a lot of Champlain last year at some point in time. So, you know, I felt the same thing at the St. Lawrence River. I just made the financial decision to stay that first day, and it was the right decision, wrong decision, whichever way you want to look at it. So I'm excited to get back up there and some new places like Oahe and Mississippi River where I don't have any knowledge and see what happens.
You said you'd not rather beat anybody but Brandon Polnick. But what anglers drive you on tour? Is it is there anybody, or is it literally yourself that drives you?
I mean, that's just a two-way question. There's always the what this, what that. I mean, I bust my ass. I work hard. Everybody knows that. But I'll sit there and I'll watch Brandon and Brandon, Carl too. But Brandon's definitely the hardest working one on the Elite Series. 100%. Brandon Polnick is. I stay a lot of the same parks as him, where he's staying with his RV. And I'll literally be sitting out there drinking a beer, and I'll come in at dark. You got to be in at a certain time. I don't know. Brian New's up there too. I just don't see when Brian New comes in. He might come in at midnight, but I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna DQ your ass, BP. It's 8:07. You got to be at the 8:08. And it's dark, and I'll be like, not really. I'm joking about that, and I'll hear a motor, and I'll be like, damn, there he is. And every day. I think he might just hide around the corner and watch YouTube or something, just so he thinks that, just so I think he's working that hard. But dude, he'll practice till the last second, whether it's rain, shine, or if he knows everything on the lake or whatever. He's out there trying to figure something out, and he definitely shows me you got to work hard to be successful, because he's successful because of his work ethic.
No question about it. He's fun to watch. But so are you. Y'all have two completely different styles. He's the professional's professional, and from the way he dresses all the way down to how he organizes his boat, how he runs, how he presents himself in front of children, all those things. And, you know, like I've said it a million times, you're the blue collar guy that comes in, and everybody's that's clocking out at some factory in Texas is, you know, coming in to see you, and you're their guy. So there's so many different characters on the Bassmaster Elite Series, and it's fun. Dave and I have talked about this before, where, you know, it's still, people are coming into their own, but identities are becoming more solidified, you know, now in the Elite Series, and we're seeing these characters come out. I mean, Carl's got his position, BP's all, you know, BP's BP, you are who you are, and all these people are identifiable by their character and their style. And I just think it's a ton of fun to watch, and watching you win, Lee, is so much fun. Congratulations on the success you've had this year and thus far in your career. And I can't wait to see where it's going, man. It's really cool, Lee. I know you probably feel like I'm just me. I'm just Lee Livesey. You know, you are who you are, but from the outside looking in, it's really, really cool to watch you grow.
Yeah. Thank you, man. You know, I say that to you all the time. You know, you don't have to be anything. You got to be yourself. And it takes some guys to figure that out. You have Happy Gilmore's and Phil Mickelson's and John Daly's and Dale Earnhardt's. There's everything. You know, we have our Matthew Robertsons and our Swindles and our Poliniks, and just the most professional and the most laid back. You know, I'm out there drinking Busch Light at midnight before the final day, hadn't retied my knots, you know, eating crawfish, and Polinik's probably drinking Cambodian goat milk and squirrel nuts or something to be healthy, you know, and everybody makes it work their own ways. So that's the biggest thing I see, is just being yourself and being confident. But I really think that, Jake, you know that.
I bet his live well's cleaner than yours is.
I guarantee you.
Dude, that's some nasty.
What about New? I mean, you brought up New, like you saw the way, and were you able to see it when New was up there and became the first heel in professional bass fishing, I think?
I did not see New. I saw a little bit of it, but I was signing autographs over there and talking, but I heard it obviously. And I've seen some maybe minimal death threats on the internet from some. No, he did a good rebound. He did a good a repost after that he loved Texas or something.
Oh, did he really?
Oh yeah.
He only did that because he got threatened by somebody, I'm sure. I wish he had owned it. I mean, how awesome would that be? Just like
it's brand new. Sometimes he just freaks out. You know, I've never seen anybody fall down in the parking lot running from his truck to his boat as many times as I have him. So he's a spaz. He's one of the best fishermen that I've seen. He's very instinctive and busts his ass just like Polinik does, and he can do anything and everything. So all the respect to Brian. He's been a really nice guy to me, and he's going to win a lot of tournaments. He's on a different level of competitive is what I'm getting. You know, guys that just go out and do their deal and fish hard. He is a freaking boss. Like I said, I've seen him fall down in the parking lot 3 times trying to sprint to his truck just so he can get to the boat faster or truck faster. So
he's the chicken hawk on Red Bull.
He is he's something else, that's for sure. I mean,
Texas still owes you, Brian.
I don't know if some of those people in the crowd love it. Yeah, like the coolest thing, me standing up there, I get to see the crowd's reaction, and you're like looking at people, and they're like, when I gave them a shot, like to go to take it back, I'm like, is this your opportunity to concede that Lake Fork is the king or whatever? I mean, and when he said, no, it sucks here, I hate Lake Fork, like to watch, there was people like that spitting out their chewing tobacco in the crowd. It was awesome. It was awesome. Speaking of bad calls, Ronnie Moore did not pick you in fantasy fishing, and you're going to be on his podcast next. Can you just be like super pissed off for the first 5 minutes, but really commit to it? Like, I need you to be like just one word answers for everything, and watch Ronnie get increasingly uncomfortable, and then break it to him.
Yeah, I can do that. Kyle Jesse just texts me the same thing.
It'll be the first Ronnie Moore podcast I watch. I don't mean that. Ronnie's a good
the time.
70% of that. Yeah. Why would I worry about saying I watch his podcast if he doesn't even pick you on your home freaking lake? Lee Livesey, you're a stud. Whether you're the marshal, the people's champion, you're just a good dude. You are East Texas to me. And I've said that to you many times before. You come from a special part of the world. And I've been lucky to have gotten really tight with several people from that area. And man, that they all just have that same stoic John Wayne-esque almost personality and a healthy disrespect for giant fish because of where you grew up. And I couldn't be happier to see it happening for anybody else, man. It's amazing. You know, in 4 years, it's been pretty awesome. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
Yeah, thank you, man. Like I said, it's just a big fraternity, and that's not just the anglers, the whole bass staff and camera guys and photographers. You know, it's all the same. Everybody supports everybody, and I've enjoyed it. I want to win another one. That's all I can say. You know, I can't thank y'all too enough. Y'all become really good friends as well as a lot of other people. So I really enjoy y'all's company.
You have the coolest and most fitting sponsorship family on tour, from Six Cents to Whiskey Myers to Bush Light to Ballistic Boats. Like, they're so fitting for you. I don't know anyone else on tour that has a better group of sponsors that fits its angler as well as you do. It's badass, dude.
I agree with that. I couldn't be happier with who I've been connected with. It's pretty cool.
It's very cool. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Lee Livesey, 4-time Bassmaster winner, the people's champ.
One more time, Lee. Yeah. Good job, dude.
That looks like a man that is beat up from doing too many podcasts and too many baby feedings, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for squeezing us in.
No problem, man. That baby's in there crying.
Well, sorry. Go get your baby. Thank you, Lee Livesey.
See y'all guys. Thank you.
Jake, that was pretty cool. Pretty cool. I mean, we never chased the champ the week of, but feel like we'll talk to Lee Livesey again in the future.
He was exhausted.
Yeah.
We got what we could out of him, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and I'm thankful for his time. But you put pressure on him, dude. Pick quick. Like, really, you went back to back in your home lake, and we're going to go back to back in the elites this year.
Man, I just call it like I feel it, right? I mean, like I said, I have no rhyme or reason why. I just feel like he's on a roll, and the Tennessee River can set up, often can set up the way he likes to fish. And I just got this feeling. It may not happen, but we'll see, right?
Yeah. You got a dirty little nugget you can give us to end up? Something you saw nobody saw. Doesn't have to be Lee. Something happened.
Okay.
Oh,
so one of his favorite spots on the entire lake, literally, he barely got to fish it because Paul Mueller was set up there the entire event. Literally,
camped
the entire event. Totally camped. Like, I don't know where Paul Mueller caught all his fish because he had a pretty good tournament.
Yeah.
But it almost had to be there because every time he rolled up there to check that spot, Paul Mueller was sitting there. And again, out of respect to Paul Mueller, because he actually, when he sees Paul, he respects him because he knows Paul is a guide and he knows he is a solid stick, and he knows when he's somewhere that something is going down there. And so that was one of the things that really got in his way and kind of got in his head a little bit, because every time he rolled up there was Paul Mueller. So that's a nugget that no one really knew about. Well,
there's a nugget. I'm happy to see Paul Mueller do good this tournament. I mean, it's been a while for him too. I mean, he's weirdly, because I mean, for a long time it just seemed like it, but that's the weird thing about this sport. I mean, as soon as you think you figured out, I know what I forgot to ask when I've had both of you guys here. I'm such an idiot.
What?
Well, Mullins brought up the ice ball incident that involved Patrick Walters and one Bill Lowen. And I wanted to get both of you guys because you were both there during said ice situation. But so we'll have to save that for another day when we have Lee back, I guess. Unless
Patrick, when he threw the ice ball, he called it a snowball, and he threw it with the intentions of hitting him in the nuts, and he ended up hitting him in the eye, which was really weird. Like that was a bad pitch, but when that happened, no one really knew what to say, because all of a sudden it's like Bill Lowen, like he's like a fluffy bunny
Easter
rabbit.
bunny.
He doesn't hurt he's not out to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
He gets smacked in the eye, and he's lucky he had his sunglasses on, because it literally hit him right in the eye. It actually bruised him right there. So Patrick earned his name, the Iceman.
I think he should be called the Ice Hole. Farkin Ice Hole.
He felt horrible. He did not mean to do that, but it was horseplay. We had been hunting this one location. This was all up at Prairie Rock. We were hunting this one location, and we had limited out, or we shot a bunch of ducks that morning, and that other group was struggling. So we actually texted them, told them to come to where we were. We backed out. We were sitting on the tailgate like 500 yards behind this blind, and they were killing the crap out of some ducks. And we're sitting there drinking beer on the tailgate when our morning was over, when all this happened. So it was all fun and play, but when it all went down, it got pretty serious there for a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, if you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch the Mullins show, where he talks about the ice incident that happened between Patrick Walters and Bill Lowen. And hey, I end every podcast with this, Jake, and telling people to subscribe and all that stuff. They never listen to me, so I'm going to let you do it this time. Subscribe,
hit like, all that stuff. It helps the show. It helps everybody involved. Hit like and hit subscribe. How's that?
That was good. That was good. Let's see if they listen better this week. We thank each and every one of you for listening every single week. It is awesome. The amount of people that come up at events and say, hey, man, we like the show. It is awesome. And I thank you for, once again, the ultimate Jake's Take and Lee Livesey. And as always, Uncle Bob, take it away.
Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, because Bob Cobb of the Bassmaster told you to. You hear?